Hello everybody, and today we're going to be taking a look at an old i7 that refuses to become e-waste. Somehow, this 11-year-old CPU manages to pull off modern gaming in some of the most demanding titles, and for only $25, it deserves more attention. I've got the video split up into chapters, but for now, we've got to find out why it's not more popular and what made it so good. The i7-3770, released back in April of 2012, was a part of Intel's third-generation Ivy Bridge processors. At one point, this was one of the fastest CPUs in the world, and although Ivy Bridge did bring a lot to the table, it also didn't change much. See, Intel used a tick-tock model where every microarchitecture change was called a tock, followed by a die shrink of the process technology known as a tick. The previous architecture, Sandy Bridge, was completely new, so the purpose of Ivy Bridge was to transition their chips onto a smaller process. The amazing part is that they invented an entirely new transistor for this, the 22nm tri-gate transistor. Previous transistors were flat with a single gate controlling the current between the source and the drain, but tri-gate transistors wrapped the gate around three sides of the silicon fin, effectively making them the first commercial three-dimensional transistor. This increased the available surface area and made it easier to control the flow of electrons, resolving these issues with leakage current and thermal output. So with their production model in mind, this generation should have been called a tick, but it was actually called a tick plus. The difference being is that they also modified the architecture a bit, with the main improvement being to the integrated graphics. Intel upgraded their existing HD 3000 integrated graphics processor to the HD 4000, adding a few more execution, shading, and texture mapping units. They also improved their hyper-threading technology by dynamically allocating resources to a thread, increased their video encoder performance using QuickSync, added official support for PICIE 3.0, allowed customization of CPU power management, added a random number generator for security, and increased support for overclocking. Individually, rather small changes, and aside from the new transistors, Ivy Bridge wasn't particularly exciting. It was simply a bridge to the 22nm process whose purpose was to set the stage for Intel's upcoming Haswell processors. At this time, AMD's Bulldozer architecture was generally more affordable, overclocked well, and had more quote-unquote cores, but Intel's single-core performance still took the lead. Ultimately, Ivy Bridge was a little cheaper than its second-gen counterparts, but due to a lack of new features and an insignificant increase in performance, there wasn't necessarily a reason to upgrade. Regardless, back in 2012, the i7-3770 was still a beast. For $280, you got 4 cores, 8 threads, 8 megabytes of L3 cache, and a 3.4 gigahertz core clock that boosted to 3.9. But for consumers, the focus was more on the 3770K. On paper, they look similar. It's only 100 megahertz faster, but it overclocked extremely well, and with proper cooling, 5 gigahertz was achievable. Our edition, the non-K edition, was made more for the corporate IT world. It doesn't support overclocking, because who overclocks their PC at work, and also had features like enhanced security and better support for virtualization, unlike the 3770K. They also made a few lower wattage models suffixed with S&T, essentially just underclocked 3770s. So if you needed 4 cores and 8 threads in a small form factor without a lot of room for heat dissipation, these chips were for you. And that's how I ended up with this, the HP Compact Elite 8300 desktop PC. Upcycled Tech messaged me about this eBay listing, and for just $10, we got a fully functional computer with a 3770 and 8 gigs of RAM. So shout out to him. I ended up throwing in 16 more gigs of RAM for a total of 24, an RTX 3060, and a Samsung 870 EVO SSD. Pairing it with a 3060 is kind of a goofy combination, but it's to make sure that the i7 is the bottleneck. It also didn't fit the small form factor of the PC, so I had to use a PICIE 16 times extender alongside an external power supply. Also, these computer parts are expensive, so consider leaving a like, commenting, or subscribing because it genuinely helps me out. Thanks. The i7 in question was built for Windows 7. It even has a Windows 7 sticker on the chassis, but today we're going to be running a modified version of Windows 10 called Windows 10 Lite. Overall, it's a little easier on your system, but if you're in the market for cheap software keys, Keysfan has exactly what you need. Now, January 31st was the last day Microsoft offered the Windows 10 Pro and Home download, but for those who don't want to use Windows 11, Windows 10 license keys are still available from third parties before the operating system is no longer supported. Luckily, Keysfan, the sponsor of this video, was running a sale, and using promo code GT50 in your cart saves you 50% off Windows 10 or 11 activation keys. They also have a sale on Microsoft Office keys, and using promo code GT62 will save you 62%. The website also fully supports refunds and has great customer service, and if a key you purchase is invalid, your money can be refunded. The license you buy is also for a lifetime activation, and the key remains valid if the memory or hard drive is formatted or replaced, and is only invalid when the motherboard is changed. So check it out. You're bound to to find something you'll like. They have a large variety of products, and I provided some links in the description that'll take you directly to their website, and once again, I'd like to thank Keysfan for sponsoring this video. The first test we ran was Cinebench to make sure it was performing similarly to other 3770s. I also recorded externally using a separate system, so we shouldn't be putting additional load on the CPU. Either way, it ended up with a score of 1441 and a maximum temperature of 73 degrees Celsius. This is about on par for what we expected, so we were good to move on to the next benchmarks. Can the i7 3770 run Crysis? Well, it can definitely run older versions, so to start off, we ran Crysis Remastered. We ran all games in 1440p without VSync, and considering the age of the processor, it did really well. We played this one with the high settings and DLSS set to balance, where it averaged 58 with 1% lows of 38. This was the first test I ran to gauge its performance in modern games, and it did better than I expected, but would this performance last? Next was GTA 5. It's a sort of difficult game to run, but some integrated graphics processors can pull it off. With a mixture of high and very high settings, got an average of 77 FPS and 1% lows of 48. As the numbers imply, it was a smooth, nearly flawless experience. Sometimes it would slow down a bit, but it was consistently around that 60 FPS mark no matter what, without significant drops in performance. Cyberpunk 2077 is still one of the most demanding games out there, but the 3770 made relatively light work of it. With the high preset and balanced DLSS, it got an average of 48 FPS with 1% lows of 28. This wasn't quite the ideal 60 FPS mark, so I dropped it down to the low settings with performance DLSS, where it got an average of 62 FPS and 1% lows of 34. The 1% low mark is a little bit lower than I would like, but overall the performance was pretty good, so I'll take it as a win. Following that was Counter-Strike 2. I'm still kinda on the fence about this game. I feel like the sub-tick system may need a little bit of work, or I might just be bad at the game. Either way, with the high preset and balanced FSR, it was more than competitively playable, reaching an average of 66 FPS with 1% lows of 41. I'm used to getting like 300 FPS in CSGO, so this performance almost seems bad, but it's a new game on an 11-year-old CPU, so it's doing pretty well. After that was Beamng.Drive. It performed very similarly and got an average of 67 with 1% lows of 44 with the high settings. Visually, the game looked great and was mostly smooth and consistent. The minimum frame rate was a bit lower than that of Counter-Strike at only 20 FPS, so it is a little more unstable, but it is more than enough to work with. Last but not least was PUBG with the high settings. That is one thing I did like about this processor. It was able to run most games at the high or very high preset. Kinda surprising in my opinion given the age of the processor, but what wasn't surprising was PUBG stability. I don't know what the devs are doing. They got an average of 83 but 1% lows of only 38. Even worse was its minimum frame rate of only 13. Fortunately, I guess this is more of a PUBG issue rather than a problem with our hardware, but it's not exactly what I'd call well optimized. So in conclusion, the 3770 is still a really good processor. I plan on working my way backwards down to the 2nd gen and 1st gen i7s after this, and so far they've been exceeding my expectations. Older high-end Intel CPUs still have a lot of life left in them, and they're not a bad choice for a budget gaming system. In total, I'd say this PC cost about $350, maybe $400, and it shows just how affordable gaming PCs can be. But to be fair, you can still find some 1st and 2nd gen Ryzen CPUs around the same price point, so the 3770 might not be the best bang for your buck, but it's still a decent choice. Few things I want to touch upon though. First, you can definitely run a normal version of Windows 10 on this PC. I just prefer running lightweight ones to get the best gaming performance. Speaking of which, COD didn't want to run because of an unsupported operating system error. I'll eventually make a video testing out different lightweight operating systems, but that's a little down the line. For potential upgrades to the system, it turns out you can actually put 32 gigs of RAM in this motherboard. I'm not going to be doing that. 24 is more than enough for our purposes, but if this was my daily driver, another 20 bucks on RAM would probably be a good choice. DDR3 is cheap and I love it. I'd probably also upgrade the SSD as well. Half a terabyte is good for a boot drive, but it's our only drive in this build, and when your average AAA game takes out about 50 gigs of storage, it can be a bit limiting. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video. Consider leaving a like or subscribing because it genuinely helps me out. If you want to join the community, there's a link to the official J&I Discord server in the description where we talk about doing goofy stuff with computer parts. I don't know, you should check it out. If you have any questions or related comments, then leave them below and I'll be sure to respond to them. That's about it. Have a great day. Bye.